Welcome to Crime Beat. I'm Anthony Robart. It's a beautiful summer evening in 1994 in British Columbia's Okanagan Valley. An 8-year-old girl hops on her bicycle and pedals over to a friend's house, as she's done many times before, and she's never seen alive again.
Nobody knew where she vanished into thin air. She was just riding a little bike.
We heard the helicopters go past our house, dozens and dozens and dozens of times.
It was absolute panic, desperation for any sign that the little girl was here.
I walk in a circle.
He was using it like literally a witch. It pulls down when he thought that he had something.
The gravesite was discovered in an area of dense underbrush, about 100 meters from the banks of Mission Creek.
Our suspect is a 44-year-old male.
Come on, charge me. I'd love to go to court on this.
At every turn, there was some other element that was unbelievable. It's one of the great mysteries of this community, of this country.
Here now is Jules Knox with Mindy Tran, The Abduction of Innocence.
In 1994, Kelowna, British Columbia was a city of nearly 90,000 people, but it still had that small town feel where folks knew their neighbors. Kids out in the streets late into warm summer evenings. And on August 17th, 1994, 8-year-old Mindy Tran hopped on her pink bike and pedaled over to a nearby friend's house to ask her to play.
People would actually have to stop for her because she would be making U-turns on this road.
Moments later, Mindy's pink bike found on a nearby lawn, but the little girl is nowhere to be found.
Mindy had gone out for a bike ride at 7 o'clock. It was just so normal. It was a summer evening. I remember that very quickly things turned from child missing and that initial anxiety to a real urgency as it got closer to midnight.
Had occasion to speak to the parents, and we've located her bicycle, but I'm afraid at this point we haven't had a lot of luck locating anything further.
It was just like, what happened? It was just shock. What happened? What happened to Mindy? Nobody knew where she vanished into thin air. She was just riding a little bike.
If she's down there, will you find her up here?
Well, we're hoping to.
We heard the helicopters go past our house, dozens and dozens and dozens of times. This was the last birthday gift Mindy gave my son.
A helicopter, Mindy's final gift to Sandy Giddings' son. The two classmates walk to school together every day.
To this day, if I hear the helicopters really low, I have to say my hair stands on my arms because it's scary, because you know they're looking for something.
Mindy's family shows the world her pink bedroom just as she left it, and her sister Mimi makes a tearful plea.
I just want to say that, Mindy, if you're out there, we're all doing the best we can to look for you. And don't be scared, because a lot of people are helping. And we all love you, okay? That's all I wanted to say.
And I was shocked. I said, wow, no, it can be not true. I feel like someone grabbed a knife and stabbed into their heart. So I can't. I don't even have a word for it. So.
We had approximately, I would say, 100 PEP and volunteers last night and police personnel doing door-to-door house searches.
Do you recognize this young girl? Yeah.
We searched everywhere. The fear is unbelievable as you're looking. In the back of your mind, what if I find?
Police release a description of Mindy. She was last seen wearing a pink Mickey Mouse shirt, light-colored shorts, and flowered runners. She's 3 feet 7 inches tall.
Right away, people suspected foul play. This wasn't a girl that was going to wander away on her own.
Anyone who's seen my sister, can you please call the RCMP? Please help us. And whoever has kidnapped her, please let her go, because she doesn't deserve it. She doesn't know anything. And we really want her back. Please don't do anything to her. Don't do anything to get her back. Please help us.
I still remember Mindy's mom. It's still so difficult. Mindy's mom stood there outside the house crying. And I still remember that. She was calling for her daughter. It was terrible.
I'll never forget the mom wailing. It was heartbreaking. Because I think we could only imagine what she was going through in that moment.
Mindy's parents released video of her singing at a school musical, hoping it will help bring her back.
I am Mindy's mother, Mindy Tran. My daughter has been missing 3 weeks now. Mindy is really important in my life. Please set her free. If Mindy can hear my voice, I want you to know I love you so much, Mindy. I want you back home so badly.
She likes reading Archie comics, and she loves swimming, and she likes to play with her friends and ride her bike. And she was really content with what she had. She never really asked for too much. If something was too expensive, she wouldn't beg for it. And she was just really nice. She was a really happy girl.
You had to love her. There was no other word for it. Like, she just had that demeanor of that innocence, that kindness, that shyness.
Mindy is a really sweet girl. I mean, anybody can fall in love with her. You know, good smile, a happy little girl.
But this is quite a bank in there. And
we're going to hit that where those horses are and stuff down at the end. There's supposedly a little bit of a swamp back in there.
Search headquarters are set up at Mindy's elementary school. Nearly 1,000 people volunteer to help look for the missing 8-year-old.
It was absolute panic in our minds, desperation for any sign that the little girl was here. We were looking for anything, a clip, a shoe, a sock, a ribbon, a pair of panties, anything.
A possible sighting of Mindy being forced into a pickup truck yesterday at a local Dairy Queen.
Are you taking this as your first solid tip?
Well, it's certainly better than we've had up to now.
Police are first looking for a dark brown truck and canopy. That lead goes nowhere. Then witnesses suggest there was a white van cruising the neighborhood.
It's an off-white, older model van.
There are thousands of white vans registered in the Kelowna area. Some van owners have come under close public and police scrutiny before their names were cleared.
They've been here every 3 days, checking me for ID and all kinds of waking me up at 1 o'clock in the morning. Right? Then last night they sent a SWAT team over here.
How's the search going?
Not good. We're covering the areas, doing the job, but not good in so much we're having no success and virtually nothing to go on.
Checked this river extensively, the park, the first couple days. Over on the right here, this is lock here. We've checked that numerous times. There's all kinds of debris and garbage, and it's really hard to tell if you have anything.
After the break, would Mindy be brought home to her family? Police are growing desperate for clues. As the search for 8-year-old Mindy Tran continues to come up empty, authorities solicit some unconventional help. We now return to Jules Knox and the abduction of Innocence.
Desperate for clues, police use a hypnotist on a potential witness. They turn to a psychic. They even give a sample of Mindy's hair to a man with a divining rod, Rex Fitzgerald.
Once it's grounded out, pick it up and I just put the hair on the machine. Hold it in a position like that. And I walk in a circle. If you watch the pointer.
He was using it like literally a witch. It pulls down when he thought that he had something. It's like, let's give this a try.
Fitzgerald called his divining rod the machine, and he was determined to find Mindy.
And it wasn't just about the rod, it was about the man. It was about the person behind it who, I remember him saying actually, you know, we have to bring Mindy home. We have to bring her home to her family. I believe he was out there every single day.
Fitzgerald describes searching for Mindy in a statement to police.
Tuesday, October 11, I picked up Gary at 9 a.m. We went to the Mission Creek area and took a reading. We proceeded east along the south side of the creek. There was a very strong odor at this place. I called to Gary and told him she must be directly below me. When Gary came through the underbrush, he stepped on a branch, exposing a shoe. The time was 10:30 a.m.
8 weeks after Mindy goes missing, Fitzgerald finds a shallow grave in Kelowna's Mission Creek Regional Park, just blocks from Mindy's home.
The gravesite was discovered in an area of dense underbrush, about 100 meters from the banks of Mission Creek. The two searchers could smell the strong odor, but they couldn't see anything. They actually walked back and forth several times right on top of the gravesite without even realizing it. Finally, one of the searchers grabbed a stick and started scratching away at a natural depression in the ground at the base of a large tree until he exposed a running shoe, a child's running shoe. It's a canvas running shoe with a pink floral pattern on a dark background, similar to what Mindy Tran was wearing when she disappeared.
That is our only link right now to suspect that it possibly is Mindy, if in fact it is human remains.
The 8-year-old's partly naked body is found with her shorts tightly knotted around her neck.
I remember thinking how extraordinary it was that she wasn't found, given how close she was.
Sergeant, how could it possibly be that the police could have missed a body about 4 blocks from the Tran residence?
If you were to see the actual site, it's very well concealed, and in fairness to the PEP people and other searchers that were here, I'm sure you could have walked within 3 feet of this site and not seen anything unless you happened to stumble right on top of it.
A forensics team spends a day and a half combing Mindy's gravesite for clues.
And then all of a sudden when she's found there, it's like, whoa, there's no white van here. And as it turned out, the white van was a red herring. She's found where there's not even vehicle access, within walking distance of her house.
Mindy's family learns that their precious 8-year-old girl is never coming home. A memorial of flowers grows near her grave in Mission Creek Park.
The person that did it, he should be hung.
The mood was very grim. You have school children filing down the road to place flowers at the place where Mindy's body was found. These kids are in grade 2, grade 3. What do you say to your children?
On October 19th, 1994, 63 days after Mindy set off on her bicycle for the last time, a funeral is held.
It was pandemonium. We ended up on the buses. We're trying to get these kids out. They shuffled the grade 3s in because they sang at her funeral.
Mindy has become everyone's daughter.
Mindy has become everyone's sister. Mindy has become everyone's friend.
Everyone is invited to stay.
The Trans make one final journey with their youngest daughter to the cemetery, her final resting site.
You know, your life has been a living hell. And you're now laying your 8-year-old daughter to rest, and you don't know what's happened.
Who's this animal to this little girl?
Sergeant Titbury, RCMP.
Would there be any sort of thing as a possible suspect or a short list of possible suspects or anything like that you've got to that point so far?
No, we certainly have some people of interest.
People reported to the police that they had seen a man around the time Mindy disappeared with a big, large suitcase. And one witness described him as, it was heavy.
It takes more than 5 months for police to finally announce a suspect in Mindy's murder.
The purpose of this news conference is to confirm that the Kelowna RCMP do have a suspect in the murder of Mindy Tran.
Our suspect is a 44-year-old male who was a boarder and boarded at a residence on Taylor Road near Mindy Tran's residence.
Mindy was going down to her friend's house to ride her bicycle down to her friend's house to see if her friend wanted to go for a bike ride. And they found the bike in front of the friend's house. Those people weren't home. They had gone to McDonald's for supper that night. The only person in the house at the time was Shannon Murin.
Coming up, why did it take so long to name a suspect in Mindy's murder? Shannon Murin has been identified as the prime suspect in Mindy Tran's murder, but he's in hospital fighting for his life. Here's Jules Knox and the abduction of Innocence.
Approximately 5 months after Mindy's murder, 44-year-old Shannon Leonard Murin is named as the prime suspect. A criminal who had already served hard time for armed robbery and assault, Murin is living at the same property where Mindy was last seen alive.
I think the police's working theory is that Shannon Murin answered the door and said, "Come on in." Never saw her again.
Police say Shannon Murin was questioned just hours after Mindy went missing, but a couple of his friends initially provided an alibi.
That's a total false accusation. We did not in any way help any man that is suspect in the murder of a baby.
Shannon Murin was at a house where friends of his were, and they reported he was there with a big suitcase. In fact, he was described as sitting in a chair with his leg over top of this big suitcase.
Murin isn't arrested for Mindy's murder.
And what they did is they approached 3 of Shannon Murin's Newfoundland friends. And they convinced them that Shannon Murin had something to do with Mindy's disappearance. And they wanted those 3 gentlemen to confront Murin and hopefully extract a confession from him. They confronted him at a house. Shannon Murin, they were laying it on him pretty good, like, "You're the killer, you're a child killer," or whatever. He pulled out a handgun and pointed it at him. And these 3 guys took away the handgun, pounded him up pretty bad, beat him up pretty bad, threw him in, the back of a pickup truck, and drove him over to the park. When they get to the park, these 3 guys lay a beating on Shannon Murin like no man's business. And nearby residents could actually hear what was going on, and they phoned the police. So the whole time that's unfolding, the main investigators are lying in the background, and frontline officers show up because they've got a 911 call that somebody's getting beat up. Well, the lead investigators are telling them, "Don't come, go away, don't take any notes, you weren't here." That became an issue at the trial.
The detectives on the case deny telling patrol officers not to make any notes. After the beating, one of the alleged assailants says an unmarked cop car pulls up.
I walked over to the car, and Sergeant Tidsbury told me to get in the car, and I was asked if the individual was alive and whether the individual confessed or not. I said yes, he was alive, and yes, he confessed.
That confession would later come into question. But right now, Murren is fighting for his life, spending the next 10 days in the ICU.
They beat him to a pulp, there was no doubt about it. Close to death, but he didn't die.
Instead, Murren is released from hospital and then immediately arrested. So by the time police announce him as their prime suspect, he's already in jail.
Upon his release from hospital on January the 16th, 1995, the suspect was subsequently arrested and charged with firearms offenses that were committed during the altercation with the acquaintances on January the 5th, 1995. The suspect pled guilty to the charges in Kelowna Provincial Court on January 18, 1995, and received a sentence of 2 years imprisonment.
Shannon Murren, he got charged for pointing a handgun, and he got sentenced to 2 years in jail. And so for 2 years he was in jail. Police knew who he was. They continued their investigation.
You're not denying that you beat up Mr. Murren.
That's pretty obvious, eh?
Is he still working these days?
Meanwhile, questions swirl around whether the assault against Murren was a police-sanctioned beating.
Did you have the green light to carry it as far as you did?
You had the green light. Make your decision from that.
All three individuals were repeatedly told that they were to do nothing illegal, nothing stupid, that they were only to talk to Mr. Murren.
He had made promises that if anything did happen, that there would be no charges ever laid, that there was nothing to fear, that we'd be looked after.
Murren calls for the trio of men who nearly beat him to death to be arrested. It takes 6 months, but eventually Kenny McDonald, Al Dunn, and Rob Holmes are charged with aggravated assaults and unlawful confinement.
The police apparently wanted these three guys to confront Murren, but not beat him to within an inch of his life. But their take on it was, as Kenny McDonald said, green light. Cops gave us green light. We could do what we needed to do. And so they thought they were betrayed by the police because they all got charged with assault.
Yeah, we are going to jail. That's cut and dry. But like I said to you before, that's okay, as long as this guy's not out on the street, and, it's worth it. I don't care. I don't got no problem with that. I gotta go. Thanks.
You feel the same way, Al?
I feel the same way. Sure he does.
Dunn pleads guilty to aggravated assault and is sentenced to 6 months behind bars. The assault charges against Holmes and McDonald are eventually dropped when a judge rules the matter took too long to come to trial. Meanwhile, time ticks away for Shannon Murren in prison, and police don't appear to be any closer to laying charges in Mindy's murder. April 26, 1995 would have been Mindy's 9th birthday. Instead of a party with laughter and giggling, a tearful memorial is held. Balloons are released into the sky, and a tree is planted.
As this tree grows in her place, we ask that you love and care for each other and work together to make Kelowna a safer place for all children.
Restlessness is growing too. Although RCMP have a prime suspect in Mindy's murder, 2 years pass and charges still haven't been laid. Desperate for evidence, police start scouring the landfill 25 months after Mindy went missing. They believe the little girl's corpse was stuffed into a suitcase and transported to Mission Creek Park. Police spend 4 days looking for luggage.
Kelowna RCMP are even doing this now might be a reflection on the status of the Tran investigation. It appears Crown Counsel isn't entirely satisfied with the package of evidence that police have given them. It appears the Crown Counsel wants more evidence. I mean, if Crown thought you had a strong case, you wouldn't be out here doing this.
Well, we're investigating all avenues.
Unfortunately, the suitcase we submitted, there was no evidence linking it to our investigation.
Still behind bars for pulling a gun on his so-called friends, now even Shannon Murren is calling out the cops.
Charge me. Come on, here I am. Come on, charge me. I'd love to go to court on this.
Coming up, it would be months before Murren's challenge to police would be answered. Police believe they have the person responsible for Mindy's death. But will the case against Shannon Murren stand up in court? Here's Jules Knox and the abduction of Innocence.
Johnny Tran, Mindy's father, makes a weekly pilgrimage to the site where his daughter's body was discovered.
Mindy's body is here. Come here, talk to Mindy. Just say, Daddy, miss you, feel sorry. And hopefully we can find who murdered you.
Then, 2.5 years after Mindy went missing, RCMP finally announced murder charges.
On Monday, January the 13th, 1997, Regional Crown Counsel Jeffrey Barrow informed Kelowna RCMP of the decision to approve a charge of first-degree murder with respect to the death of Mindy Tran against Shannon Leonard Murren.
Shannon Murren was scheduled to be released from prison this week. The RCMP say it is just a coincidence that the murder charge was laid while he is still behind bars.
We are very happy to have found that Shannon Murren will be charged for Mindy's death. Mindy, who may be in heaven now, will be very happy also.
We are all innocent. Only the who killed Mindy. He should pay that for this time. If Shannon Murren is guilty, he will be punished.
From prison, Shannon Murren maintains his innocence in Mindy's murder. He says he was out looking for his stolen mountain bike when the little girl came to the door.
There was nobody home. That's the reason why the guy next door seen her coming up, knocking 2 or 3 times.
Mindy Tran was last seen going to 3608 Taylor Road, the residence where Shannon Murren lived. We had at that time 4 people who had provided descriptions of a man carrying a suitcase that evening, either to or from Mission Creek Park.
I asked Tidsbury, put me in a lineup. Put me in a lineup right now, I says. Oh no, he says, you've changed your looks.
And Murren believes police tried to nab him in an undercover sting operation, going so far as to send somebody to ask him to do a hit for $250,000.
I knew they were all cops. Then he said, this woman, she's got a 9-year-old daughter. Now, we might want both of them killed. You know what I'm saying? Well, this is your arrest, and you're barking up the wrong tree. I said, I don't kill people.
At the time, police wouldn't comment on undercover operations, but Murren says it's after he turned down the hit that his so-called friends beat him to within an inch of his life.
One of them had a baseball bat, the other guy had a tire iron, they had steel-toe boots on. What a beating he gave me. I had 6 holes in my head. I remember waking up in the woods face down, blood running down my throat, blood in my eyes, I couldn't see it. And they said to me, they said, look, Tidsbury said that you killed her. You admit it and we won't kill you.
At 2 various times during this process, he did confess to them that he killed Mindy Tran.
Murren's trial is moved to Vancouver. It starts on August 3rd, 1999, nearly 5 years after Mindy was murdered.
I think it's going to be a tough fight. He's not exactly a prince.
Say, Mr. Murren?
Oh, I'm not guilty. I've been saying that from day one.
What was Shannon Murren's demeanor in court?
Oh, he seemed pretty lackadaisical. Come in, say how you doing, you know. Yeah, he seemed pretty relaxed.
To prove that Mindy was strangled at the hands of Shannon Murren, the Crown calls dozens of witnesses. One of them is Mindy's sister, Mimi.
She choked back tears as she described her little sister Mindy as a sweet, generous child who was shy around strangers. Much of Mimi's cross-examination focused on the timeline. The defense contends that Murren could not possibly have killed Mindy Tran and disposed of her body in the brief period the Crown alleges. And the defense contends it will be able to refute a new type of DNA evidence from hairs found on Mindy's panties.
And they did find a hair that wasn't Mindy's at the gravesite, but there was no root ball on the hair, which they need for a full DNA analysis. So what they did was called mitochondrial DNA, which at that time was really in its infancy. And it's not as precise as a full DNA profile. It comes from the mother's side, and it gives you it narrows the list of suspects.
It's never been tested in a Canadian courtroom before.
Will you be bringing your own witnesses to contradict the Crown's DNA witnesses?
In all likelihood, yes.
There was another officer who actually washed Mindy Tran's garments. He explained later on that there was, substance, they were soiled or something. He didn't want to give them back to the parents when they were in that condition, so he washed them. Well, the defense made great hay out of that, about how, evidence that could have exonerated our client was lost. And what are you doing washing clothes? That's washing evidence. Nobody does that.
In court, Mounties turn on each other as more details emerge about Murren's near-death attack. Two corporals say that senior detectives told them not to make any notes about the beating. A third officer alleges Tidsbury told her before the assault that one of the attackers said there was a possibility police would find Murren tied to a tree at that location near the gravesite. Tidsbury denies both allegations, but the lead investigator's credibility is now under fire in court.
Tidsbury, I think, was a good cop. This really affected him, this case, right? He wanted to get to the bottom of it. And, I think the defense at trial would argue that he cut corners that he shouldn't have, and made some investigative decisions that probably weren't past the smell test.
Murren's alleged confession on the night of the brutal beating is never entered into evidence. He denies confessing and does not take the stand.
Today, Murren's defense lawyer, Peter Wilson, wrapped up his final argument to the jury with a sharp attack of what he suggested was a botched and biased police investigation.
Wilson told the jury there is a cover-up, and it goes as far as perjury, in this case by members of the RCMP.
It was a circumstantial case for the most part, and it was one of those cases where the harder you looked at the evidence, the more problems there seemed to be.
After listening to testimony for nearly 6 months, the jury deliberates for 6 days. The verdict is unanimous.
I was found not guilty and feel just great. I knew it would come.
Mindy's parents do not attend court in Vancouver, but through RCMP, they issue a statement.
Our great sorrow is that we will never have our daughter, Mindy, back with us. We are unhappy and confused with the result of the trial. It is hard to believe this outcome.
Were you expecting for Shannon Murren to be acquitted?
No, never, 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 never. I personally wanted the judge to throw the book at him. I think Kelowna was in shock.
When I heard the news he was a free man, it made my blood boil.
Absolutely devastated when the news came down that he was found not guilty. We thought this was hands down done, and it wasn't.
This is incompetence by the RCMP right from the beginning. They didn't try to find out who done it, they tried to say you done it.
I think the police think they got the right guy and the jury got the wrong verdict.
The RCMP has every confidence that the appropriate person was charged in this investigation.
What else are they going to say? What are they going to say? Say, no, we charged wrong, man?
Coming up, a shocking affair develops between Shannon Murren and a juror in his murder trial. Could it have anything to do with his acquittal? A cold case reopened, and further allegations against Shannon Murren. We now return to Jules Knox with the conclusion of Mindy Tran, the abduction of Innocence.
Turn your mic on. Just happy to get out in that, right? I can't believe it. I got to go back and pick my money up at my place. And
Are you going back to Newfoundland? What do you think about the investigation?
What about the jury?
Shannon Leonard Murren, found not guilty of 8-year-old Mindy Tran's murder, walks out of court a free man.
They don't pop.
Murren returns home to Newfoundland.
Oh, Mother, home again for a while.
Oh my, I can't, I'm so dead.
Free after spending 5 years in prison.
There was a couple of jurors that I felt very, very strong bond on that, right? It was like a lifeline. And I knew that they would never, never, never let me be convicted. I just had that feeling.
And within a couple of weeks, one of those jurors, Kathy McDonald, follows Murren across the country to his family home.
And I felt good about being part of letting an innocent man go free. So I called him.
So she said, congratulations, we knew halfway through your trial that something was wrong, right?
Murren says he's starting a new chapter and he wants to write a book about his story.
And she said, I'd love to do that, because she does a bit of writing in that, right? I said, well, if you're really serious about it, you'll calm down. If you're not serious, you won't come down. And she came down. So she must have been serious about writing it, right?
Maybe I can just ask you sort of for the record what your purpose is in being here.
It's in writing a book.
Do you think it'll develop into anything?
No, I don't think. No. I'm waiting for her to make her move, then she hasn't made it yet.
Meanwhile, McDonald's trip to Murren's home prompts a criminal investigation into the jurors' actions.
It doesn't worry me one bit. There is nothing. There's absolutely nothing.
When you got one juror who's falling in love with him, who knows what her influence is in the jury room, right?
It was a sort of a WTF, like, can this really happen? At every turn, there was some other element that was unbelievable. The family, I remember thinking how cruel it was.
Well, I can't understand how there could be any evidence that there was any contact between Murren and this juror during the trial. He was in custody.
Nothing ever comes of the criminal investigation launched against Kathy McDonald. No charges are laid. Years later, Murren and McDonald acknowledge they are together.
You have to question her moral ethical fiber. She was sitting as a juror in a very complex case, and a case that had completely rocked the city. What was she thinking? How does one live with themselves? How does one sleep?
Murren launches a lawsuit against the Attorney General and Sergeant Gary Tidsbury for how the Mindy Tran investigation was handled.
They can all go to hell, they're saying, they're going to be paying for what they've done.
Murren isn't the only one who wants a closer look at the case. Both internal and external investigations are started. And Mounties release redacted findings from their review of the murder investigation.
So what went wrong? Well, the review says there were a few whose bad judgment, loss of objectivity, and failure to live up to their duty as members of the RCMP contributed to the downfall of this file. And the downfall of the case in court was the integrity of the investigation.
The internal report found no reason to discipline any officers, and it was left up to the Crown to decide if Tidsbury, who retired from the police force before Murren's trial finished, should be charged criminally. It decided against it.
Police investigating police, same result every time. You know, they make themselves look like Boy Scouts.
Then, in March 2000, a possible break in the case. Another alleged confession in the murder of Mindy Tran, but not from Shannon Murren. Mounties spend the day at BC's Fraser Valley's Mountain Institute interviewing 48-year-old James Hubert Holmes, an inmate with a history of sexual assaults.
I'm also told he made his alleged confession to a fellow prisoner last fall while the trial of Shannon Murren was underway, and that he claimed to have planted Mindy's bike where it was found on the front lawn of Murren's Rutland home.
The cellmate claims Holmes told him he had the girl's body in a condemned building while searchers were combing through the yard.
Holmes was in Kelowna in 1994. He was interviewed by the Kelowna RCMP at that time, and they determined he was of no interest to them.
He doesn't appear to be of much interest to police this time either. Police say Holmes denied the confession and passed a polygraph test. They also say his DNA didn't match. Mindy's case isn't reopened.
What part are you up to right now, Shannon?
I'm in prison doing 9 years, and I get out in 1984.
Mounties settle the civil lawsuit launched by Murren, although how much money he's paid is under a gag order.
Geez, we gotta have hamburgers night or something. Get any meat? Did you buy meat today?
But a quiet home life doesn't last long for Shannon Murren. 6 years after Murren is acquitted in Mindy Tran's murder, a former friend, Joey Oliver, names Murren as the shooter in the double slaying of 30-year-old Dale Worthman and 29-year-old Kimberly Lockyer. The couple suddenly vanished from their home in St. Philip's, Newfoundland on August 27, 1993. It was 1 year before Mindy Tran goes missing, when Murren was still living nearby. The autopsy finds the victims were both shot multiple times in the back of the head, execution style.
From something that I thought was going to be a beating, turned into a murder.
Oliver is charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder, but the court's agreed statement of facts largely accepts Oliver's claim that he didn't shoot the couple and followed instructions to wait down the road because he was afraid. He pleads guilty to double manslaughter, 16 years after Worthman's and Lockyer's bodies are buried in the ground.
Let me ask you this directly then, and I know everybody else has this.
No, I did not.
Murren claims he doesn't know the couple and denies any involvement.
If I killed Kim and Dale, I don't think it bothered me too much to plant a piece of crap like Joe Oliver in the ground.
The Crown can't corroborate Oliver's version of events, and Murren was never charged.
I don't think he's going to come out of prison alive. All right. Because, I mean, he's an informant, and that's the way informants go. Isn't that right? 12 inches of steel. That's what I sees for him anyway. I didn't tell anybody to do anything for me, but I mean, a 12-inch shank in your guts just gonna make Joe have a lot of regrets.
Oliver did survive prison and has since been released.
You will probably go to your grave in some way being known as the man, although unproven, that was a trigger man in these 2 horrific murders.
Yeah,
probably. Can you live with that?
You mean, can I die with that? Going to my grave. I can live with anything.
On TV later.
But for friends and family of Mindy, it's hard to live with the grief.
To me, the case never closed. The pain's still there. Doesn't matter how long someone get away with murder. I feel like he's a burn in hell.
It's one of the great mysteries of this community, of this country. There was a very short window for her disappearance and death, that this could have happened. It wasn't even dark yet in a busy area of the city. This case should be solvable, and why it isn't, I don't know.
RCMP still say that while they respect the court's decision, they believe the right person was charged in Mindy's murder. They're not seeking any other suspects and say the file remains open only because there's no conviction.
We have never forgotten Mindy. This beautiful, beautiful little girl with this cute little ponytail, big smile, big bright eyes, just goes on a little pink bicycle riding down the neighborhood and then doesn't come back. The shock of it.
She just had a sparkle about her. She would have made something of herself.
A little princess, a little angel really is, and she will always live inside our heart.
Shannon Murren and Kathy McDonald went on to spend at least 9 years together. Meanwhile, the tree planted in Mindy's name continues to grow, as does the Mindy Tran Memorial Bursary, awarded in her honor each year. It has been almost 30 years since Mindy went missing, and her killer has never been brought to justice. I'm Anthony Robart. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Beat. Want more episodes of Crime Beat? Listen to the Crime Beat podcast now for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And for past episodes of Crime Beat, check out our YouTube page or download the Global Go app to watch on your phone.